Welcome to the RC Community Sticker Project, brought to you by Fast Freddy RC. In today's video, we're doing a shout-out to Gottfried RC. Great guy, awesome logo, and some great running videos.
So for step 25, checking the RC equipment. Well, this is where we need to make sure that the servo is in neutral. So I'm going to pull together everything we need, I'll attach everything, and then we'll get to this step. Now this is going to be a little bit different because we are doing the four-wheel steering. So, as you can see, when you go to the four-wheel steering step, we still have this other servo, and it says refer to page 13 when checking the equipment. Well, guess what? This is page 13. So the only difference here is we're going to not only connect one servo, but we're going to connect a second servo to the receiver so that we can make sure that both of them are in neutral. So I'll set this all up and we'll figure out the neutral points. Okay, so I have everything hooked up now. I've got my battery hooked up to a Hobbywing 1060 speed controller. Mine didn't come with the kit, but I had one kicking around, so this is the one that we're going to use. And it is all getting plugged into this receiver. This is an R304SBE. What is the difference? Because there's an E version and just a B version. This doesn't have an external antenna. So you can see in this receiver, there's an antenna for it. This one, there isn't. Apparently there's a possibility it has a little bit less range because there isn't an external antenna. I thought I'd get it just to try it out and see, because I don't actually like the antennas, because if you think about the antenna cables even on this one, they're short. So depending on your vehicle, you can't really get it up through the outer body anyway. So I'm not sure. This will be an interesting test. So this is now plugged into this. Now this is a Futaba SU301. They're relatively new. They're doing away with the standard analog S148 servos. So I'm trying out this servo here, which is supposed to be a replacement for it. And it is a digital servo, as you can see. So I have two of those hooked into this receiver. Now apparently for four-wheel steering, you want the first one plugged into slot 1. And for four-wheel steering, so the rear steering, you plug it into channel 4. So technically we are all set. So we just have to watch to see that these go into neutral. And the other thing is, you can see here with the radio that I've got, this is the 3PV3, which is designed as a telemetry system. And if you want the four-wheel steering, what I did find out is you cannot just get their 4-channel radio, you have to get the one that has telemetry. And telemetry was more expensive, and I didn't get it. And I found out that you cannot do telemetry, or I should say you cannot do four-wheel steering with their regular 203GF receiver. It has to be this 304 SB receiver in order to do four-wheel steering. So I ended up having to order this receiver separately. I didn't return the kit because I'm going to use this receiver in something else. I'll just pair it with another vehicle. But just be careful when you're buying a radio for four-wheel steering that it actually says it can do it. When I was doing all the research on this 3PV, I was shocked when it couldn't do it, because there's nothing on their website, there's nothing on the box, there's nothing that says that you can't do the four-wheel steering with just this receiver. But it is what it is. I've managed to figure it all out. So let's do our test. Now the one thing I do want to do is take this off so that we can get to the actual servo gear. So I'll do that first, and then I'll come back and we'll do the test. Okay, so I've taken those horns off the servos from the way that it was packaged. So we are ready to go. So obviously I can't hold both of them, but what you're watching for is to make sure that, well, I guess I can hold both of them, that they are in neutral before we move on to the next step. So in this case, if we take a look at my radio, I've actually already programmed this as the squash van. So if I turn the power on, it says squash van, SQVN. So we're ready to go. The radio transmitter's ready. All we need to do now is turn on the receiver from the ESC. Now I'm going to do that, and what you should see is that these gears will shimmy and go into neutral. There we go. Do you see that? I'll turn that off again, and we'll turn it back on. Well, I think they've already shimmied. They may not work quite the same as the analog ones, but when we did it the first time and I turned the power on, you saw that the gears moved a little bit to go into neutral. So we're good to go. So I can actually see this. That's the main steering servo, and I'm still going to need to figure out the four-wheel steering and how that one works. So now that we know that the servo is in neutral, both of them, we are going to work on the front steering and put on all of the servo saver pieces, and then we'll move on to the next step. We'll save this for later when we're working on the four-wheel steering. So one of the things to make note of is that you see for step 25, they're showing you all these screws. Well, this step doesn't mean you use all of those screws. In my case, it means you use this MC4. So how do I know that? Well, this was a Futaba servo, and as you can see here, they're saying from the servo, the original horn and screw, which there's my original screw that came in the servo when it arrived. They go, well, was it a tapping screw or a standard screw? Well, when you look at that, it's definitely a tapping screw. Okay, so now that it's a tapping screw, which one is it? Well, we know that it's not a thick one. You can see that it's too thick for that. But we do know that it is a thin one. If I can get this thing to sit properly. We know that it's going to sit there on the thin one. Well, if it's going to sit on the thin one, which one is it? Oh, it's an MC4. So we go and grab our MC4 screw that came in one of the bags in the squash van, and we put it on there. We know that that is the screw that we need. So I've pulled together all of the pieces. That's what we need to install this. And then of course there's this funky little washer, which I've not seen before, a tooth washer. So we'll attach all of this to the servo. So just like the screws too, you can see that this says the B12 is for Futaba. So that's what this piece is. This is for Futaba. So if we look at this positioning, and you can see that the cable is coming out from that side, just like that, we know that this needs to be placed first. But here's the thing. You'll notice on this diagram, they want this to be sitting on an angle so that it's more or less sitting like that to the servo. And in order for that to happen, we're going to have to make sure that this piece is sitting correctly. And you notice it's showing that it's off to the side a bit, even on that. So if we know that, we're going to have to figure out where the best placement for this is. And in fact, because of the way that's designed, I think I am going to change the way that I normally put this on, because I think we're going to need to put that on first, just like that. And that's going to have to go on there just like that. So you've got those three pieces, but knowing that it needs to sit like that on the servo, we'll now put this on. So if you look at the placement of this, it needs to sit off on an angle. So on closer inspection, I saw this cable coming out of the servo, but you can see it's coming out of the servo on the other side and going under. So this is where paying attention to the details is really important. A lot of the kits, you see just the wire coming out of that side. They don't have this bit. So in fact, this is definitely correct. The cable needs to be coming out of that side. So, knowing what we know now, we're going to grab our toothed washer, put that in there, grab our MC4 screw, put that in there, and now I'm going to try and hold this enough that the servo doesn't move when I'm screwing this in. And I'm just going to make sure, maybe if I put my thumb against it, it won't move. Yeah, that'll do it. So there we go. There is our front steering servo with the servo saver attached. So that's ultimately what it needs to look like. Now, I'm not going to do the other one until we get to that stage, because once we're onto that stage, I will actually follow through with the rest of the four-wheel steering installing instructions. So we'll leave it there for now. So step 25 is complete. So we are now going to move to step 26 and attach the steering servo.